Hey guys, Kurt again from Time Machine Transport. This would have been the third part of the turbo video. I got it in, but I'm doing a different video. Once I fire up the truck, then I'll go ahead and I'll check for leaks. But anyways, I said I had to do a PM on this truck. And when I do a PM, I always lube it up. So the best way to lube up a truck is when you get it off the ground, because it gets, when you take your grease gun and you put it on your fitting, when the truck is off the ground, there's no pressure on the joints. So the best way to lube it up is like I said, taking it off the ground. So when I did that, because I knew I had to lube it up, this wheel had a lot of play in it, and we just did the kingpins on this truck. So our mechanic, the one that's a dirtbag, that's no longer with us. If you know him, his name is Chris Edgerton. He's a piece of garbage. Anyways, this is where your tie rod end goes in. Goes up like that. Anyways, this wheel was super loose. So what had happened was, shoot. Oh, here it is. This is the end that we're keeping. Anyways, this nut that was threaded on, not this side, but this side on the passenger side, when it was threaded on there, I could literally take my hand, just my regular hand, and do that with the nut. It was super loose. So, I checked and I tightened it down, but there was a problem. This cotter pin goes in through the actual bolt itself, but it was I just took a big ratchet that we have, and when I just hand tightened it so it was pretty tight, I didn't use an impact. I wouldn't suggest using an impact. When it was, let me thread it in here. I'm sorry, guys. I should have been more prepared for the video. And like I said, I'm not a mechanic. I don't pretend to be one, but I try to do everything I can myself to save money. And that's why we have a shop. So anyways, when I had hand tightened it all the way down, it was about that high. So when you slide the cotter pin in, it was above the grooves. So that's what those notches are in here for, so that this cotter pin can sit inside there, and it prevents the bolt from spinning off. Excuse me, I have a chew in my mouth. So I went over to Freightliner, and I guess I'll back up. So we had bought this whole entire assembly from Freightliner because I was getting some clunking in the front end. So we assumed it was this with some bad bushings. So the piece of garbage, Chris Edgerton, I wasn't at the shop. I got back and I was leaving that day, and I said, hey, is it done? He said, yeah. So what he did was, this guy, instead of replacing the whole entire assembly, he kept the old bar or the old tube, and he took one of the new tie rod ends, this one, and twisted out of the new rod or the new bar or whatever, and just threaded it back in there instead of replacing the whole thing. And the reason why I know that is because when I pulled the when I pulled the driver's side wheel off, and I went, that's the bar we used, I took that socket there and I put it on the nut, and it just wouldn't come off. This bolt with the nut on top of it were spinning together. So this piece of garbage went, instead of doing it right, well, first off, if you do the tie rod ends and the bar or the tube, lift your truck off the ground. That's what I would recommend, so you're getting the pressure off of there. Like I said, I'm not a mechanic, but it seemed to work for me really well. So instead of him raising the truck off the ground, he did it when it was on. And I could be wrong, that you're supposed to take it off the ground or leave it on the ground. I would imagine taking it off the ground would be a lot easier. But anyways, so this was up in there, this old one. And like I said, this and the nut were spinning together. So instead of him figuring it out and doing it the right way and putting the whole entire assembly on, he left this one on in there and got slick and left the whole tube on. Like I said, he left this whole entire piece on with the old one sitting in the wheel assembly, and then just took the new bar, the new tube, twisted out the new tie rod end, and just threaded it in there because he's a piece of garbage. So not only was he, and that chaps my ass when somebody's that lazy. So now, and then he obviously had to get rid of the evidence, so he got rid of this bar and the other end over there. He got rid of that and probably put it in the trash. What a piece of garbage. So what I had to do was, let me grab, sorry guys, I'm just trying to be as detailed as possible to help you guys out. That's why I make these videos. So the nut was like that, not this one obviously, but the old one. So I tried to get a vice grip on the bolt itself, but then I couldn't twist this nut off. So I took a cutting wheel, and when the bolt was on there, I went and I cut it off side to side about 3 areas. And this is one of the pieces that was cut off. So, and then once I did the 3 sides, 1, 2, 3, I was able just to hit it with a chisel and a little mini sledgehammer, and the bolt popped right off, or the nut popped right off, and then I was able to take it down. I scarred it up a little bit, but I don't think that's really a problem. So anyways, so then we've already spent, I forget how much it was, I want to say $300-400 for the original assembly on this. So I'm not going to do that again. So like I said, I was able to get and you can see where I scarred it up with the cutting wheel. Well, like I said, this whole thing was spinning, which is weird. So what I did was, there's a bolt just like that, and what this does is it tightens down so that the tie rod end can't spin its way out, and it kind of it secures it, so it squishes this pipe. That's why these notches are in there. So I loosened it up, and then I took a torch. I was going to use our cutting one, but I didn't want to cut through it, obviously. So I heated it up. I sprayed it down with lubricant, like, WD-40 or whatever, and I hit it in these 2 crevices here, and then let it sit for about 20 minutes. And then I took the torch and I heated it up right here. And then I kind of kept taking the torch and going around it, or the torch, I guess, or the whatever, the heat. And I went around the whole thing probably for about a good 15, 20 minutes to where it was like almost red hot. And then I took a big old pipe wrench and threaded it out. It didn't come out right away. It took quite a while. I mean, I wouldn't say quite a while, probably about maybe, with the heating up and twisting, and I kind of kept working it back and forth, so it was kind of going back and forth like that. Because there's obviously rust, and it was the old one that was in there. So I'd have to say with heating it up and working it out, probably about an hour. And obviously I have it in a vise, and I really tighten this thing up pretty good. But before I did that, I took a tape measure and I took two measurements. I took a measurement from the edge here to where the last thread was, and I got a measurement there. Okay. And then I took another second measurement, and I went from that edge to the center of the grease fitting. Now this one is 3 inches. I think mine was 2 7/8. But so I took two measurements, one from here to the end of the thread, and then another one from here to the center of the fitting. And then I wrote it down. So I was 1 1/4 inch thread showing, and 2 7/8 from the edge to the edge of the bar grease fitting. So that was 2 7/8, and then was 3 inch. And the reason why you do that is because you want to get it back to where it was initially. Because I already had a 3-axle alignment done on this truck. Obviously the 2 rears and then the front. After he put, well, we know he didn't put it on. And another reason why I know he didn't put it on is because I can actually see where he put, this isn't, you can see it's not brand new. This bar is only supposed to be 6 months old. And there's grooves here where he had put a wrench or a pipe wrench on it and twisted this fitting out, the old one, to put the new one in instead of doing it right. And the bar is kind of scarred up in other places. So I know this isn't the new one. So I mean, that's why he's no longer with us, because he's a piece of garbage. So after you get your measurement, then you heat it up and twist it out. Once I got it going, it came out pretty good. So then another thing, now I'm going to thread this one back in. So what I did was I took some brake cleaner and I sprayed it down in there and tilted the pipe up and kind of got some, got a wire brush in there to kind of clean out any residue or anything like that. And then I took anti-seize and I threaded up the threads. So now I got to take the pipe wrench and thread it back into here, but make sure before you thread the tie rod end back in, make sure you put your piece back in, because you're going to go through and you're going to have all that. You're going to work it and get it all in. You're going to be like, oh shit, I forgot to put this in. So make sure you put that in. Make sure I have it. Yeah. Goes in just like that, so it grabs the end of the bar. Obviously don't tighten it down until after you get it threaded in. So now I got that all prepped out. I'm going to go ahead and thread it in. I'll measure from my face to the end of the threads again to see where I'm at, and then I'll measure from the edge of the pipe to the center of the grease fitting, just to make sure that I'm in almost the exact spot I had. I would recommend after you do this to go ahead and get another front end alignment. That's what I'm going to do. This is part 1 of 2 videos. What I'll do is I'll do another video once this is installed, and then how to lube up a truck. The front end, lube and grease the front end with the grease gun, and then the rear axles. So I hope this video was informative, and if you like the video, please thumbs up and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Ciao.